Okay, this is going to be another example of completing the square. So we're going to work this example here. One thing that I didn't mention in the previous video is that this a term here has to be 1 in order for us to complete the square. So in this example our a term is still 1, but in the next example that we work, that'll be in a separate video, we're going to work an example where the a term isn't 1, and there's a trick that you can do to make your a term 1, and then you'll be able to complete the square like normal. So that's kind of a step that you want to do when you're looking at your problem. Just make sure that there's nothing out in front of the x squared term. So we're going to go through this one quick, and then we'll work that last example that's slightly more difficult. So we want to move our 5 over to the other side, so we're going to subtract 5 from both sides. So we have x squared minus 8x equals negative 5. Now we want to add in our blanks, so x squared minus 8x plus some number equals negative 5 plus some number. And in these blanks we want to put our b over 2 squared. So we find out what b over 2 squared is, and we put it in both of these blanks here. So our b term is negative 8, so it's going to be negative 8 over 2 squared, and negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4, and that's negative 4 squared, which equals 16. So that's what's going in our blanks there, is just a positive 16. So now that we have that written out, we'll simplify this a little bit more. So x squared minus 8x plus 16 equals negative 5 plus 16 is 11. And now this is going to factor. So we think about what this factors down into, and this one's going to be x minus 4 quantity squared, and that's equal to 11. So there's actually a trick for factoring these, and it's just a part of the way that completing the square works is that this quadratic that you get here is always going to factor down into x plus or minus something squared, and the number that you put in right here is actually this number right here. So the number that goes here is actually going to be your b term cut in half. So you can see that negative 8 over 2 is negative 4, and negative 4 is what goes in right here. So that's actually going to work out every single time that we complete the square. So if you don't want to remember this trick, you can always just factor this using your normal factoring rules, and you'll get to the same spot. So I'm just going to rewrite this down here. We have x minus 4 quantity squared equals 11, and in order to solve for x, we need to take the square root of both sides. So we take the square root of this side and the square root of this side. So what we're left with here is x minus 4, and over here we have the square root of 11. And the last thing we have to do is just move this 4 over to the other side. So we'll add 4 to both sides. So x is going to be equal to positive 4 plus or minus the square root of 11. So that's going to be our answer there. And remember just to add in this plus or minus whenever you have a square root here. So stay tuned for the last example.